Going. Alrighty, we are online after many trials and tribulations. My goodness. All right, this is behind the scenes of AV Rant, episode number 616, and we really are back to a behind the scenes thing now. In order to get my recording working, that's on a separate computer now, or on the computer I was using. This live broadcast that's happening, I'm now doing on my laptop, which definitely means like I'm gonna try to screen share a couple of images that are like pertinent in that, but you know what? The priority is the actual recorded video, so I'm not promising anything on this behind the scenes one. You really might not see the images we're talking about. I know people are annoyed by that, but it's like, hey, the actual video that's gonna live on, that's got to be the focus. So
do you delete the old ones? You should delete the old ones.
I know I should, but people get upset when I do. They still get more views than the finished video. I don't know what people are on about.
We should not put the behind the scenes up. That's what we should do. We should just not do that, and then we won't have to worry about it.
I don't know, Matt. Whatever. People are viewing us. Does it really make a difference? How does it affect anything?
It doesn't affect anything. So it makes the quality of our channel look garbo.
Well, we're not YouTubers. We get like 250 views maximum on a video, so what does it really matter?
That's a lot of people.
That's like, not a lot of people. If there were a
we're practically a YouTube celebrity.
We are. Really, yeah, with our 25 cents a year that we get from them.
Woohoo!
So, you've been warned. This is very much behind the scenes.
For a shopping cart at Aldi's. 25 cents.
Yeah, really.
You guys have Aldi's?
In Czech? No, we don't have Aldi's. Not in Canada. Or not here, anyway. I don't know. They might be some other part in the Maritimes or something. Who knows?
Who knows?
Is that all? Okay, that's all going over there, I guess. Yeah, all right. You can start whenever you want.
Let's go. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And welcome back, Tom. You were off last week. Lee Overstreet filled in, so very much thanks to Lee once again. I got a fantastic thumbnail from YouTube. The YouTube gods smiled upon us once again with Lee's face.
I did see that.
In the thumbnail.
I also noticed that his audio cut out after a while. Did you just keep going after he went to bed?
I just kept going after a while. I kept going for another 15 minutes or so. He had to go.
It's so weird. All right. The whole point of the podcast is a conversation, but what?
It was one more person's question. I wanted to get to it.
All right, we'll see how long this podcast is going to go because I got stuff to do, and this took us an hour to get going. That's not good. All right, this is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. I was off a week. I can't remember already. You go to www.avrant.com and leave us a comment there. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast. YouTube.com/AVRant, where you can see apparently only the unfinished videos because the finished videos don't get any views for whatever reason.
It's about equal, but the unfinished behind the scenes ones get more than the finished ones. Yeah. But it's because it comes out earlier and people watch it, and yeah, there you go.
That's why I think we should just nix those. But whatever. Okay.
People like them.
We've got, you can contact us directly, Rob at avrant.com. His Twitter is at First Reflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. My Twitter is at avrant_Tom. And somebody followed me this week, which I was shocked by. Wow. You looked at my recent post history and went, this is a man who's got his finger on the pulse of the nation. I'm going to follow him.
You do post regularly, at least once a week.
Once a week. Yeah, usually. All right. I want to thank our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, all you have to do is support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is go into www.avrant.com, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and it'll take you to a PayPal donation site. You can use your PayPal account or a credit card, which PayPal will process, and we will never see the number of. And they will send most of the monies to us and keep a little slice for themselves. So we want to thank Paul and Gregory for doing that over the last 2 weeks.
Yes, Paul, Gregory, thank you both very much for those donations.
We also want to thank our 73 patrons over at patreon.com. Patreon.com is a service where you can sign up for a monthly like a donation to a group of or a single content creator. You can split it up however you like. Minimum for each content creator is $1. So if you would like to support us with $1 a month
or more,
you can do that or more.
Yeah, patreon.com/AVRant podcast.
So somebody asked me, and if $1 a month from Patreon is more or less than $12 in one shot from PayPal. Mm-hmm. And I guess I would have to know that I think the take from Patreon is a little bit more. I might be wrong about that.
I don't know. I mean, it's a percentage.
It's a percentage, so it should be. whichever the percentage is the lowest is the
Right.
one that we would want. So I think PayPal's better.
It's
I don't know.
probably very close.
It's
to the same.
within a couple of pennies. So
Yeah.
whatever floats your boat, dude.
Yeah.
All right. If you can't support the podcast financially, you can do so, and you do so in some other way. Just let us know what it is so we can thank you. So we're going to thank Terry, who bought a JVC RS540, which is the same thing as the 790 projector from projectorpeople.com. He talked quite a while with our national sales rep about AVRant, about how much we've helped him. He chatted with several people and always found them helpful. And when he had a question they weren't able to answer, they got him in touch with the rep from JVC, who spent a lot of the time on the phone with Terry and was extremely helpful. Terry was convinced to go with the RS540 because the JVC rep was very honest that even though the new NX7 model costs $4,000 more, it's actually a slightly lower contrast and slightly higher black level than the RS540. So slightly higher black levels, huh?
Yep. Yeah, so it's not quite as black, and the contrast isn't quite as high, but it's $8,000 versus the RS540's $4,000 now price tag. So yeah, we're still liking that RS540, also known as the X790 in JVC's lineup. It's the Wobble K model, but you're actually getting the deeper black levels and the higher contrast for $4,000 less.
All right,
not bad.
And Patrick on Facebook let us know that our podcast feed on Google Music hasn't updated since October 1st. When I looked at that, it had.
Oh.
I looked at it immediately after I saw that.
Yeah.
So I think Google's just stupid. I mean,
whatever's going on with YouTube Live, I have no idea what's happening behind the scenes there. So
yeah. So yeah, Google just occasionally stops updating podcasts, and then they all update at once. So we also want to thank 2A for the website and Lee for being filling in for me last week when I was busy with a puking child.
Yes. How is your son? Is he doing all right?
He's fine. He's fine.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, and our website stayed up the entire month of October, so I'm gonna assume 2A fixed it.
I think so too.
Thank you, guys.
In the news, so there was a pair. Am I getting this too, or is it just you? I'm a little confused.
I'm the only one who got a tracking number, so I think they're only coming to me.
All right, well, there you go. A pair of SVS Prime wireless speakers are on their way for Rob to review. So if you've seen them online, they've been advertising all over Facebook and stuff like that. So they look pretty cool to me. So
yeah,
I'm
I like
excited.
the looks. I'm hoping that they'll be useful to my parents because I need to upgrade their TV listening situation. It's not cutting it right now with the Vizio soundbar, which is nice enough, but can't get loud enough and stuff like that. And it's kind of old. And they've kind of like turned it up so loud so many times that now it crackles. So they need something. Yeah.
All right. So Rob was also a guest on the Entertainment 2.0 podcast with Josh Pollard and Richard Gunther last week, where they talked about how Red Dead Redemption 2 is faking HDR. Exciting, I guess. And it looks better if you set the game console to output only SDR. That should make a lot of gamers real happy.
Biggest game of the year. Yep. It's, they didn't really make. It's not really made in HDR. It has an HDR calibration menu where all it does is like, so it's normally set from 0 to 100 nits, and then you can be like, oh, make the peaks 300 nits or 500 nits or whatever. But it also moves the black level up at the same time, so it's the same range of contrast.
So you went from going from 0 to 100 to 200 to 300.
Well, not really, because it's on a logarithmic curve, but yeah. So yeah, we had a good talk over there about Dolby Vision and HDR and IMAX enhanced and all that. This is stuff we've covered on AV Rant as well, but if you'd like more of me talking about that stuff, head on over to thedigitalmediazone.com and check out Entertainment 2.0. I was there.
All right. LG Display confirmed they will begin mass producing 8K resolution OLED TVs in May of 2019. So like a couple of months. It's like
half
7 months.
A year away, yeah.
6 months away. We're going to get 8Ks for all the people who don't need them, including all the people who still haven't bought a 4K TV. But
yes, preparing for the 2020 broadcasts, right? They're looking at that whole super high vision 8K broadcast in 2020. So by the end of 2019, you'll be able to get an 8K OLED.
Just think how crispy those will look as they come through your cable pipe. I go to my parents and I can't even watch. Like they're like watching football, and I'm like, "You guys really think grass looks that way? Is that the way you think grass looks?"
We're still doing the 720p thing, right? Yeah. Going from 720p to 8K. Yeah.
See how it shifts back and forth in big blocky motions. Is that how the grass looks to you? in real life? Because that's not how it's supposed to look. So anyways, Netflix wants to make movies, which they have been making movies, but now they really want to make them. And they want those movies to be eligible for awards, so they're trying out a new release strategy, debuting their movies exclusively in a small number of theaters and only making those movies available on their streaming service some 1 to 3 weeks later. It's way better than 6 months that they used to be.
That is a short release window, but nevertheless, even though it's financed by Netflix, it's not on their streaming service first. It's in a handful of theaters for 1 to 3 weeks, and then it shows up on Netflix.
So this short theatrical exclusivity window isn't long enough to get major theater chains on board. So theater owners are calling this a halfway gesture and criticizing Netflix, saying the strategy won't satisfy theatrical audiences, filmmakers, or Netflix subscribers. But Netflix says that this is the way to attract world-class filmmakers by giving them eligibility for awards while still sharing their work with the largest possible streaming audience. I think that they should just say, we will put it in the theaters for as long as you want. And once it stops showing in theaters, 3 weeks later, it's going to be on Netflix. So if it's a huge hit, it sticks around for 4 months, then...
I mean, Netflix has a bunch of movies that they don't finance themselves from other service providers. Those were in theaters for however long, and then they showed up on Netflix. Now, we don't always know which movies for sure are going to show up on Netflix. A lot do, but a lot also don't. So I have no problem with as a Netflix subscriber, I would have no problem with them saying, here's a movie we're making. It's going to be in theaters. It's going to be a regular theatrical run. And when that theatrical run is over, it's going to be on Netflix. I'm like, cool. Like, as a subscriber, I'm not angry about that at all.
No. I don't get whoever's saying that. Oh, that's not going to make Netflix subscribers happy. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Doesn't do anything for me. If I was going to go to the movie to see the movie, I'd go to the movie to see the movie.
Yeah. I mean, of course, there's going to be some troll who's like, I'm paying for this movie with my subscription, and it should show up on my subscriction at the same time that it's in the theater. Like,
it's a Russian troll, technically.
There's going to be some dummies who are going to say that, but I'm like, honestly, I really don't think I certainly wouldn't care, but who knows? Maybe I'm more rational.
There's definitely some people out there who are irrational, but
so
they just like to be angry about stuff, so ignore them.
Exactly.
Some comments here. Jonathan, since we talked about minimum phase last week without me, so I don't know what to talk about, regarding deep bass and equalizing one subwoofer for one seat, Jonathan points out that Room EQ Wizard has a fairly comprehensive section in their help documents that is all about minimum phase, if anyone's looking for a more detailed explanation. Yay.
That is right. I do not fully comprehend it. I just know one of the characteristics where if you flatten out the frequency response, you have automatically evened out the time domain and vice versa. So either solution works, right? You can pack your room with so much absorption that it flattens out the time domain, which automatically gives you flat frequency response, or you can EQ the frequency response, which automatically gives you good time domain response. That's how it works in the super deep bass. I don't exactly know why, but it kind of goes into all the details over there.
Math is why.
Well, even over there, they're like, yeah, the math is really complicated, so we're not going to bother printing that here, but here's the word explanation. So yes, even they don't go full hog.
All right. Nathan just wanted to rant a bit about Amazon Prime Video. Is it about lip sync? He wanted to try the best experience possible from the service, 4K HDR video and Atmos audio. So he bought an Amazon Fire Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K, which supports all the audio and video formats available from Amazon Prime Video, and settled in to watch Jack Ryan, since that's their only Atmos title at the moment. Dude, that show sucks. I don't understand why it's
people like it quite a bit.
So. I don't understand, man. That guy looks so goofy, and I like him. Okay, it's not it, but he's just not Jack Ryan. And then the first couple of shows are like, I watched Think 2. And I was like, nah, I'm good. So maybe I'll give it another one, but I just really didn't like it. Okay, anyways. But just finding Jack Ryan in its 4K HDR format was a challenge. Searching for the title directly only brings up the HD version. And once he finally found, found the 4K version, it doesn't play in Atmos automatically. Atmos is available, but you have to pause the show after starting its stream and then manually turn on the Atmos and the audio options. Even worse, it never remembers the settings, so you have to manually activate Atmos every time you want to watch it. Not exactly user-friendly. Now, one thing, okay, that's all very dumb. Like, yes. Yeah, we can all agree on that.
And obviously, like, that's not the hardware's fault.
No.
That is all on Amazon's streaming service software side, so it's up to them to fix it on their service side. Right. Yeah.
But the thing I do like about that is when you pause a scene in Amazon Prime, the people who are on the screen or in the scene their little bios will pop up.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
is
notice that.
so awesome, man. You're like, you'll pause it and
Ah.
you're like, oh, this is the actor who plays the Mr. Robot guy. This is the
Yeah.
actor who's playing the so and so, or the actress who's playing this. That is so cool. I love that about Amazon. Everything else about Amazon sucks, but that is awesome. You know what
I've
really
been a
sucks?
huge fan of Prime, like especially in Canada where the selection is really small. So yeah.
Well, I feel like it's really small here too, but that's mostly because their interface makes it almost impossible to find
Right.
anything.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they give you all these little sliders of things, and no matter what slider you're on, it's like, yep, Jack Ryan's on there. I'm like, romantic
Apparently,
comedies?
it's not going to show you the 4K version. So.
No, apparently not.
And why? Why are there multiple areas to find the? I mean, I noticed on Amazon Prime Video you can find a season of a show, even though they have more than that season.
That drives me absolutely bonkers.
Like, why don't you just have one entry for the show?
It's like, oh, here's Hannibal season 3. I'm like, I haven't seen the first 2 Hannibals. I guess I better not watch it. And I realize, oh wait,
they have them.
They have them. They have a different thumbnail and they're in a different place.
God, that's weird.
I
mean, whose UI design? That? Yeah, can't like. Yeah, that's the way we want to do this. And even like, he's right. Searching for stuff doesn't always bring up the results you would expect. So,
not only that, I mean, searching for stuff on Amazon is so aggravating. My wife's like, "Oh, I want to." She's like, "This is my wife says to me, I want to see Seven Samurais." I'm like, Kurosawa? You want to see Kurosawa film? She's like, yeah. I was reading a listicle and it had this is the #1 movie in the last 100 years. I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that, but I would definitely watch this movie with you. It's an amazing movie. I've seen it before. And so she's like, well, let's go stream it. I'm like, yeah, we're not going to find it, but we'll try. So I searched on them. Of course, on Amazon Prime, it's like, yep, here it is. You can buy it. I don't want to buy it.
The buy or the rental version. Yeah.
I don't want you to give me those results. I want you to give me just the stream results. I'm not here to buy stuff. So that's the thing you need to put into a different window. All right. Let's get into the questions here. Ted got a new shelf for his gear. I read this question before this podcast. Well, I was waiting for my computer to restart. And I'm like, Ted. So he decided to rerun Odyssey. So he's got a new shelf for his gear, and he reran Odyssey because of it. I don't know that was totally necessary, but he did it. But this time he used the Odyssey editor app that gave him the option to stop the equalization at a given frequency, and based on some trial and error and everything he's read about a room's transition frequency, he settled on only having the EQ applied up to 300 hertz. He likes the results he measured with Room EQ Wizard. And even though everything above 300 hertz now looks a little more jagged than when Odyssey was EQing the entire frequency range, it just seems to sound more natural, more life-like for him. So Ted just wants our thoughts on this. I can already tell you what our thoughts are. You answered the question when you said that it seems more natural and lifelike to you,
and you like the results.
You like the results. Once you said those words, you answered this question. But I will continue. Plenty of articles recommend this approach of only EQing up to a room's transition frequency and avoiding equalization of the higher frequencies. A lot of people say a lot of things about a lot of stuff that's all very dumb, but whatever. Some of the research he's read theorizes that it's all to do with direct sound versus reflected sound, that our brain is already a much better filter than any room correction program. But below the room's transition frequency, where it's all reflected sound, that's where EQ can be a real benefit. What's our take? Our take is that you like it, so who cares?
Yes, but I'm sure he wants to know a little bit more about the reasons why.
Well, I understand, but he's, a lot of times these EQ things that we're talking about, we're trying to. They bought the EQ so that they can make their room sound better. And then we're like, okay, now that you've done it, what would really help? Some room treatments. But Ted's already there. Oh, yes. Right? Ted's already got very all that stuff. So, yeah, Ted's a perfect candidate for, EQ doing as little as it needs to do, because he's done everything else to prepare his room and his experience beforehand. So, think about how much time this man has spent with placing his speakers. It's been what, a year, 2 of getting the speakers in the right place, moving the entire room. Did he ever move the room?
I haven't heard that he has.
Yeah, but he talked about it. So, that was something that he had considered. Yeah. So, above 300 hertz, there's a lot of things out there that people have said about, oh well, this hard and fast rule, you shouldn't EQ anything up here, or you shouldn't do anything within this range or whatever. And the reality is, it's true until it's not. And and in your case, Ted, it worked great. But you will not find us saying don't ever EQ anything above 300 hertz, because most of the time you should absolutely EQ things above 300 hertz, because there's all kinds of stuff going on in people's rooms that aren't your room.
I mean, from my perspective, it comes back to the similar thing of, if your results in all of your seats are not the same, then
Right.
trying to EQ that is going to mean, like, if you have a peak in one seat that is at
Sure.
that very same frequency, a dip in another seat, you can't EQ that properly. And it doesn't matter what frequency we're talking about, you can't EQ that properly. Now, nobody is going to disagree about the EQing of, well, somebody out there is going to disagree about the EQing of the bass, but nobody with knowledge that we would listen to is going to argue about the EQing of the bass. Like we talked about the whole minimum phase situation last week, which is, as you EQ the bass and get flat frequency response, it automatically fixes the time domain for you, and vice versa. If you fix the time domain, it'll flatten your frequency response. We understand quite well the evening of the frequency response across multiple seats using multiple subs. And then, of course, once you have uniform response, then you can EQ that very nicely to either be flat or equal the target curve that you're going for. The issue when you start trying to equalize higher and higher frequencies is the higher you go in frequency, the more directional that sound becomes.
Right.
The less it is omnidirectional, or that our ears can't triangulate the source of the sound, because as the sound waves get much, much shorter, we can triangulate where it originated from. We get these reflections that are not equal to the original sound because they were scattered by the surface that they hit, or other things that long bass frequencies don't do. And as you move from seat to seat, you very well might have significantly different frequency response, from the dispersion of the speaker being different, from the distance between your ears and the angle to the speakers being different from what seat you're in, and triangulating the response, from the reflections being different because they scattered off of different surfaces differently. And then you try to equalize that, and you might be able to do that well for one position, but
Right.
not for multiple positions. And we know that Ted cares about multiple positions in his theater. So the whole not equalizing higher frequencies that are more directional, that you can triangulate and all these things, to me that makes sense, because it's so difficult to get that uniform across all of the seats. And therefore, if you just kind of leave it alone, our brain is very good at going, yeah, that's the direct sound versus the reflected sound. Floyd Toole's done a ton of research into this, where he's like, yeah, we expect to hear those reflections, and when we don't, it sounds odd to our brain. So that whole, this sounds a bit more like real life, even though it might not be as flat objectively, it sounds more like real life. Well, real life isn't flat all the time. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm largely in agreement with this approach, especially when you're dealing with odd-shaped surfaces in your room and multiple seats that you care about. I think it would be very difficult to equalize that to get uniform response for all your seats.
Right. In a perfect world, the EQ program, whatever it would leave all the frequencies alone that it can't
Right.
affect for all the seats. The reality is sometimes they don't do that.
Yeah.
They'll so yes, it should flatten things out slightly above 300 hertz. It should. And it should leave the things alone that it cannot fix, but sometimes it's going to try anyways, and therein lies the problem. So I mean, it's fine. Yes, great.
Yep.
It
I'm
works.
largely in agreement with it. That's my take.
Yeah. So how do you calibrate the room's how do you calibrate? Man, my eyes. The room's transition frequency anyway, Ted asks. Well, how did he know to do it above 300 hertz if he didn't know?
Well, that's sort of the advice that's out there. Some say,
okay.
don't do anything above 500 hertz. Some say don't do anything above 250 hertz. And then some say don't do anything above the room's transition frequency. So he's like, how do you calculate the room's transition frequency?
All right, so how do you do it?
It's pretty simple. You figure out what is the shortest dimension in your room. That's often the height of the room. Don't forget that dimension. So it's often like 8 or 9 feet is the height of your room. You figure out what wavelength equals that height, and that is the transition frequency of the room, whatever the shortest dimension is. So like 8 feet equals approximately a 140 hertz frequency. That is the wavelength of 140 hertz, is about 8 feet. So the whole like don't do anything above the room's transition frequency. Often we say about double the room's
I was
transition
going to
frequency,
say,
which
I would
gets
have
you
a real
close to
hard
that
time
300 hertz.
suggesting somebody not EQ above 140.
Yep.
That seems
Although,
awfully
I
low.
mean, you could.
You could. Well,
That's
you could not
doable.
EQ at all. People do it all the time. But
Yeah, the room's transition frequency is the when the shortest dimension is equal to the wavelength of the sound. That is the definition of what the transition frequency is.
all right, Damien. This is on Facebook, I guess, and Twitter.
Yes,
The
he
guy
sent questions from multiple places, none of which were email. So
all right. Damien is asking on behalf of a friend. His friend's theater room is a dedicated sealed room, roughly 19 by 21 by 9. He has 2 rows of seats, and he's wondering what he should do in the way of surround speakers. His friend heard a home theater set up with just 1 row of seats, and he didn't like how distracting one of the monopole surround speakers was every time it made a sound. But he was sitting in one of the seats that was closer to one side, so that particular surround speaker was very close to him and pretty much aimed directly at his head. His friend talked to someone at a home theater shop, and they suggested he use bipole surround speakers for a more diffuse sound. But then the friend heard Damien set up, and he liked that. Does Damien have monopoles? I guess he's got monopoles.
as far as I know, he does. Yeah.
Okay. But he wasn't sure how well it would work for 2 rows of seats. Damien mentioned using multiple surround speakers, at least 2 on each side, 1 for each row, or maybe using an array of surround speakers, just like a full-size cinema. What do we think would give the best results? Okay, so this is a perfect example of somebody who had one experience, and then it has extrapolate that to mean that that's how they feel about everything in the whole world. So now I can completely understand this. I have sat too close to a surround speaker before, and it is very distracting.
So have I.
Now, yeah, 100% understand where this guy's coming from, and that is why we say that there's a you EQ for one seat, or that you worry about a certain seat or a certain group of seats, and then you try to make sure everything sounds the best for that seat. And some people are like, well, I want another row of seats, or I want my couch to be wider, or I want this, or I want that. And you're like, well, that person's going to be sitting right next to the surround speaker, and you're like, I don't really care about that person. You were that dude.
Yeah.
Okay,
You were
the guy.
Yeah.
You were the guy in the bad seat and said, oh, this is terrible. I hate being this close to this thing. Right. Well, in your theater, don't sit that close to that thing, and then you'll be fine. There's nothing wrong with having bipole speakers. I mean, I have bipole speakers in my setup right now. The reality, though, is that these days, all the recommendations, all the content is being mixed with the idea of direct firing speakers in mind, monopole speakers in mind. That's just the way things are being mixed. But your Damien, in this case, the friend, is suggesting the best of both worlds, which is essentially 2 monopole speakers, one behind each row of seats, just slightly behind each row of seats, which is essentially, you could make the argument, a bipole speaker. They are firing
kind of far apart, but yeah.
They're it is. If you took one bipole speaker and sliced it in half and split out between 2 rows, that's what you did. So you are creating essentially a bipole speaker to give you a nice diffuse sound on that side, but it has a more direct effect for the people who are in each row, but it also gives a little bit extra on those sides. So I mean, if it were me, and you have the money and he has the money, I would get 2 I would have 2 speakers on each side. Not an array, but 2 speakers on each side.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I mean, what makes it distracting is when it's basically firing right at you.
Dude, a bipole speaker would not have helped that situation.
It wouldn't help because so like he's thinking when he went to talk to the person at the home theater shop, he was thinking, is there one speaker I could buy that would work for 2 rows of seats? Right. And they're like, well, you could get a bipole, but I'm like, but now,
so doesn't really work for 2 rows of seats. I hate when they say that.
Let's say you put that bipole halfway between the 2 rows. So it's in front of the back row and behind the front row. And because it's got these angled sides, it's basically firing straight at both of them. But now the people in the back row get the experience of the surround sound coming from in front of them. Yes, over to the sides, but from in front of them. And the people in the back now experience it coming from a little bit too far behind them, not from their side. right? And if you go with a dipole speaker, it can be even worse. Like that was really meant for one row of seats because it's supposed to be directly to the side of that row of seats. And now that row is in the null of the dipole. So they hear nothing direct. They only hear reflected sound. But again, it doesn't work for the back row of seats because the rear facing drivers are essentially aiming straight at that back row and they get the experience of, oh, the sound's coming from in front of me yet again. So yeah, I'm in complete agreement with Tom. I would go with monopole speakers. I would basically think of each row as its own row. Where do you want the surround speaker for that row? Do that times 2. Yeah. Right? If you're the person who wants them directly to the sides, which, hey, if you're in the leftmost seat and the left surround speaker is 90 degrees to your, like, that's going to be distracting. So I usually want to put it a little bit behind me and a little bit above me. I still agree with the original, like, recommendation of placement of having it like a couple of feet above your head, because that is also less distracting. And also just like a full-size movie theater where all the surround speakers are still elevated.
They're very high.
Because they don't want the people on the side having a speaker like right in their ear. So I'm still in favor of elevating them a bit, having them a little bit behind you, not egregiously, but a foot or two behind you and a foot or two above you, and then just do that times 2.
Right. And from personal experience, like every once in a while we'll have people over and they'll all sit on the main couch and then I will sit in the back row just to let people, have the good experience. Sure. And I'll sit in the back row, which means I've got the surround back speakers literally over my head, probably in front of me slightly. The front of their baffles is in front of my face slightly. And the side speakers are way in front of me. And it's not a good experience.
It's suboptimal.
Suboptimal is not saying it right. I have a friend too. I help him set up his setup, and he's like, "This is the only place I can put my surround speakers." I'm like, "Okay, well, let's put your chairs here." He goes, "No, I can't put the chairs there." Like, what do you mean you can't put the chairs? Oh no, you got to put the chairs here. I'm like, "Your chairs are behind your surround speakers." He's like, "Well, this is where I can put them." I'm like, "Okay." I have never experienced surround sound in his home theater. Right, you don't experience it. It just all sounds like it's coming from the front. Sure. So I would 100% recommend putting more surround speakers. All right. He asks, what's the flat wire speaker wire we sometimes recommend again? There's actually a brand called Flatwire, isn't there? But I don't think that's the one we recommend because they're real expensive.
Yeah, that's right. I recommend Sewell's Ghost Wire. I like Sewell, and I like their Ghost Wire, and that's the one I recommend.
All right. We are going to have to take a Ecobee break.
Ecobee break.
Because I am glistening. I can feel it. It is so hot in here.
Yes, it's so much more convenient with the home automation, app controllable, network attached thermostat versus just setting the thing before you come in the room. So much better now.
It's better. It is better. No, I mean, I knew the difference is that I would still not have said it before I came in the room.
Okay.
And then I would just be hot
without physically getting up and leaving. All right. Okay.
I was just talking to my wife about this last night. People are like, "Oh my God, you must love Florida so much. It's so, the weather's so wonderful and sunny all the time." Blah blah blah. I'm like, listen. The forecast for today is a high of 89 and a low of 79. That is a 10-degree difference all day long. You cannot turn your AC off or your house will turn to mold. Like, just immediately to mold.
I would definitely not. I live in Vancouver. I'm in Canada. It's very temperate in Vancouver, but it's too hot for me. So, yeah.
We're still on the same dude, Damien. What would we suggest for $1,000 or less 5.1 audio setup, assuming this is more casual family room or living room type setup? Open concept, not a dedicated theater, but a normal 8 to 10 foot viewing distance and just normal furnishings, carpet, draped sofa, but no specialized room treatments. Great. Assume it's for games, TV, streaming, or just something to enhance a nice flat panel, better than the sound bar, but not looking to put up putting a cinema to shame or anything. What we recommend?
$1,000.
$1,000 is real hard to swing, dude. I would recommend 2 speakers and a subwoofer.
That's not a bad suggestion at all, because you can get higher quality bookshelf speakers, just a pair of them versus 5 speakers total.
That really, I'd spend $500 on a sub and $500 on two bookshelf speakers.
What's going to power them?
Oh, we got to do that too?
Yeah, it's a 5.1 setup, not just speakers and a sub. Yes.
Well, then I guess you have to spend $350 on get a cheap receiver.
Do you have any specifics that you want to?
No, man. I just read this question for the first time just now. No.
All right. Well, I'm spending 400 of your dollars on an RSL Speedwoofer 10S. For an open concept room, it's definitely not going to pressurize, and it won't quite dig down to 20 hertz. But hey, for $400, you really can't do better. So Speedwoofer 10S from RSL. I'm going to take $200 and spend that on a Yamaha RXV 383 5.1 AV receiver. It passes through Dolby Vision and all that, so you said you already got a nice flat panel in this scenario, so at least it handles all the video stuff nicely, and it's 5.1, and it gives you very basic YPOW auto setup, but it gives you something, and then that leaves you $400, which, amazingly, for $400, you can get the Pioneer Andrew Jones 5-speaker package. That's the center and the bookshelves, and actually you can get the one with the towers for $400.
Oh,
There's a seller on Amazon who's selling the whole package there, $400 for 5 Pioneer Andrew Jones speakers. So I wouldn't be disappointed with that setup at all. And
yeah, that sounds all right.
Yeah,
that sounds decent. Could live with that. Josh just moved into a new loft style apartment. It's pretty much a blank slate, so he wants our help in setting up a living room from scratch. The whole space is roughly 19 feet long, 38 feet wide, and 16 feet high. It's one big rectangle, dude. His living room area is on the right side, roughly 19 feet long, 14 feet wide, and 16 feet high. 16 feet high is going to throughout the whole thing, pretty much.
Yes.
For those of you that cannot see the pictures, imagine a humongous shoebox, because that's what this thing is. And he's got stairs on either side going up to like a loft.
I mean, it almost looks like it was converted from something, doesn't it?
From like a warehouse, yeah.
Yeah, because it's got these big things that are now bricked and concreted up, but they look like where semi trucks used to come in to make deliveries.
Absolutely. And then like on one wall there's an opening which is clearly the kitchen area, but the rest of it just looks like it was a big rectangular space that they turned into a loft. It's very cool looking. I like it quite a bit. The chair is just sitting alone waiting for a table, or a sad face. But yeah, it's good. So anyways, all right. So which side is the TV? There is a TV on a side right now, or is that a computer? There's a computer on one side, so I imagine the TV is going to be on the other side. Is that what I'm taking from this?
Yeah, he's actually marked out with some green tape. It's to like the right of the kitchen island if you're looking at the big overall shot. Very on one of those big concreted up bays, there's like a green line you can sort of see.
Oh, okay.
And that's like he's taped off where he wants to put his projection screen. And yeah, over on the left side below the bedroom loft area, there's like a computer set up right now. But no, he's going for a big setup over to the right there where he's taped off.
So he'll have a wall on his right and nothing on his left for 1,000,000 feet.
Correct.
Okay. With such a completely open space and no way to have light control, he's got it in mind to install 120-inch Elite Screens CLR, which is ceiling light rejecting projection screen in a Dell S718 QL ultra short throw projector. What do we think about this proposed setup? Why does he need a short throw projector? He can just
ultra short throw projector.
Why does he need that? Why can't
because he can't control the light in here, and he's thinking he can use an ultra short throw projector that literally sits like 1.5 feet in front of the screen. Get this ceiling light rejecting screen, which is like specifically mentioned is meant for ultra short throw projectors, and he's hoping that even with a pretty high ambient light situation, he can get the 120-inch screen size and still use it during the day. That's what he's hoping for. Now, this Dell, the S718 QL, it's actually like a laser light engine. It's the dual blue lasers with the yellow phosphor. So it's a DLP laser light engine, like 5,000 lumens, ultra short throw, about $5,000. That's sort of the price range that he's in here.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, this is all about trying to get a really big screen that can work in a pretty high ambient light situation.
I'm kind of surprised that does the ultra short throw go below it?
Yeah, it would sit on a little table.
Okay.
It would just sit on a little table directly below the screen. Like I say, the front of that ultra short throw is literally like 18 inches in front of the screen because it actually kind of fires
whenever I
back
think of ultra short throws, I always think of the ones that go on top and shoot down. So when he was talking about a screen that rejects light from the top, I'm like, how's that going to work?
No, this one goes on a little table direct. Like he could put his equipment stand, your normal equipment stand for all your other gear, and then the projector could just sit on top of that. It kind of look like a center speaker, but they're sitting and fire onto the screen.
I mean, and how much does that screen cost?
About $1,900.
So we're looking at
120-inch.
almost $7,000
Almost
for this.
$7,000.
But
Yeah.
$7,000, dude, you get a real big flat panel that negates.
But you're
all
still
of
talking
this.
like 85 inches.
Sit closer. You know what I mean? I hate to say it's not like acoustics are going to be.
Yeah.
The acoustics in this place are going to be awful.
Yes.
There is
Which
no
we're going to be
around
digging
that.
into in a little bit, but yeah.
So, spending $7,000 to get a 120-inch screen so you can sit an extra 1.5 feet away.
Well, a little bit more than that, but yeah.
Come on.
I mean, 9 feet versus about 11 or 12 feet. So yeah.
I'm sorry, two
or 3 feet farther. Away.
That's a lot of money for a couple of feet, for me.
But it is. I mean, honestly, the alternative would be an 85-inch flat panel for sure in this same or less price range. Like I would point you to Sony's X900F in their 85-inch size, which is like you can find for around $5,500 now, which is pretty darn good for an 85-inch, really darn good LCD flat panel. Like OLEDs.
The problem I have with this anybody who comes to us with these questions about how can I make this work where there's light and always light and blah blah blah. I'm like, it's not always light. You are going to watch it at night sometimes, and they're going to be stuck with the screen, 120-inch screen, which is going to be, light rejecting this and that and sparkle that and hot spotting and everything else.
I do have to warn, the way that the Aeon screen is designed, it is really designed to reject light from above, but not so much from the sides.
You mean that big white wall that'll be a couple of feet away from it?
And the windows that are over on the left, and unfortunately windows that appear to be in the kitchen area, so there's light coming from the same direction that the projector light is coming from. Like, yeah, this is a real bad challenge for a projector. Now, I mean, look, like Hisense has their $10,000 like similar thing, ultra short throw setup that they're like, oh no, this is a 100 or a 120-inch TV because it'll still work, and like people have seen it at trade shows and it's not that bad, but the black is definitely like, no, everyone is like, yeah, the black can't be black. It's impossible for the black to be black. It's a crazy bright, like, like this one, 5,000 or 8,000 lumen projector in the case of Hisense. It's crazy bright projector. It's the ambient light rejecting screen, but it still can't make black actually look black when the lights are on.
Well, he's got that stairway on the other side, right? If you just flip this 180 degrees and you put whatever screen or
under the stairs,
and then you sort of take and drape something underneath the not drape it, you know what I mean? Because the stairs right now you can see
build yourself a little shadow box.
Exactly. You could put it underneath that. I don't know what the dimensions are underneath there, how big. I don't think you can get. You definitely can't get the screen he has marked out on this wall, but you could get
the angle of the stairs coming.
It would certainly help with the whole trying to get some light control.
Yeah, making yourself kind of a shadow box situation. Yeah, I could see that. And then you could go with like a LunaVision's ambient light rejecting screen, which rejects light from every direction.
Right.
Except for like straight on, which is where, of course, you would end up putting the projector.
Then you wouldn't have any windows directly facing it, I don't think. Yes, all the windows, windows would be blocked from all directions.
Or you could just get an 85-inch flat panel.
I would definitely get the 85-inch flat panel. I gotta be honest with you.
I know. But... I mean, as much as look, I completely get I want 120-inch screen, but I do have to agree. Like in this setup, the 85-inch flat panel, first of all, it costs less. And it will definitely look better. The black will actually look black. And yeah, you sit closer to, you sit next to your fireplace instead of behind your fireplace, right? I have to agree.
Is that a fireplace?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure that black thing on the thing
it just looks like a black thing from what I'm saying.
It looks like a fireplace.
Painted that way.
Sure.
Oh, whatever.
Man, right, I know that's not the answer he wanted to hear, but
I know it's not either.
It's not that I'm not like, I think that Dell Ultra Short Throw, I haven't seen it in person, but going by the specs and knowing what other Ultra Short Throws look like, I'm like, it can be impressive. I'm not saying that. It can be impressive if you have to have the size. Like I don't think you've made bad choices in the products you were considering, not one iota. Those are the appropriate products if this is what you were going to do. But yeah, I think the 85-inch flat panel will look better and cost less.
On the audio side, he's thinking of starting with just an LCR setup and adding, so left, center, right, for those of you that aren't familiar, and adding subwoofers and surrounds later. His front runners are a Denon AVR X4400H receiver with Klipsch Reference 3 tower and center speakers.
Yeah, Reference 3, that's like their flagship
Why,
you know.
why on God's green earth would you want horn-loaded speakers in this highly reflective space is beyond me.
Well, he's thinking it's a big space. He needs a lot of sound. That's what.
Yeah, but
the
you're
thinking
not.
would
Or
be.
how are you sitting on the other side of the space? Because if you're not,
He was also in his email. He's mentioned he's like, well, since I'm only getting left, center, right to begin with, he's thinking like big towers so that maybe he can not need subwoofers.
yeah,
I'm
well,
like,
that's
"Oh,
never going to
this is-
happen.
nah."
So you're never. Well, first of all, pressurizing the space is a non-issue anyway. So we're not going to win it because you literally are pressurizing your entire house. There's like
Right.
2 doors in the entire.
Yeah, we're gonna go for like a near field subwoofer placement, probably like either side of your seating.
Yeah.
Would be very appropriate, and you're not going to fully pressurize it. But if you need more super deep tactile, maybe you look at butt kickers or something like that. But I'm going to go near field, either side of your couch, couple of subs. Yeah.
And I think you need bookshelf speakers. I don't think you need anything that's super horn loaded or super efficient.
I mean, I'm not opposed to having towers just because the form factor might work more easily.
Yeah. Yeah, you've certainly got the space to place them in.
Yes.
So if you place them based on where you have that screen right now, you're going to be basically putting one in a corner. So that would be not be optimal. But yeah, I would go with smaller speakers on stands and not worry about trying to fill up the entire space with
I mean, the other thought I had was maybe he is thinking like, oh, I'll be up in my bedroom loft and I want to be able to play the speakers down there and still hear them clearly, which
dude,
that means some output, all right.
That does, but I mean, I think that depending
not
on
recommended. Have another set of speakers up in your bedroom if that's what you want to do.
You might as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been known to crank my speakers at open the not. I haven't done it since I've been here, but when I was living in apartments, stuff like that, I would crank my speakers and then clean. That's one of the things I like to do. So I can understand that, but in this day and age with fantastic headphones and Bluetooth speakers everywhere, and she who shall not be named controlling the whole thing, I just have a hard time. Even if you're going to have a party,
have multiple speakers around the house, so it's much more. Yeah, instead of like whoever is over on the right side of your house is
can't
deaf
hear
now.
anything.
Yeah, spread it out a bit more. Yeah, I have to agree with that. It's similar to like how you're treating lighting, right? Have zones of audio throughout rather than just one thing trying to light.
We could give you 100 different recommendations for speakers, and I mean all the ones that we recommend that are free for 2-way shipping. You should definitely try out. But what you really should do is you should go to your. I mean, this guy's willing to spend some cash, basically, from what we're seeing. So go to your dealers, go to Magnolia, go to wherever has got speakers, and then figure out first of all where you're planning on sitting in relation to your TV. Figure out how far away your speakers are, and then sit there. And when you're doing your auditions in these different places, and because honestly, I mean, depending on what we're going to be doing for room treatments, which no matter what we do is not there's just so much square footage of area for reflection,
all hard and flat, all of it.
Yeah, that I would not worry as much about home auditions. I would just whatever room they got you in is probably going to be as good, if not better, than yours. So let's just go with that.
Yeah, I mean, the Klipsch Reference 3s. It's not that I don't think those aren't very nice speakers.
No, they're fantastic.
All the money you would have spent on those, I'm like, take a huge portion of that money back, and we're going to spend it on attempting to treat this entire space instead. I want you to spend like more money on room treatments than on speakers at this point, because that's kind of what you need to do. I mean, I bet if you just go in here and just go, hello, that it like literally echoes in this
it
place.
Absolutely echoes in this place. Yeah, your footsteps in there. The whole place rings, I'm sure.
We've got to treat the heck out of this place. So all the money you would have put in those speakers go into treatments instead.
Right. So Justin wants to hear our thoughts on the space as a whole regarding audio and what you should do to get the most out of it now and in the future. Put something on your walls, like tapestries. Thick room treatments that are the size of tapestries.
I mean, if you like the kind of sparse look, which honestly I like the look.
I do too.
I think it's cool. It's very clean and that, and I'm sure that was part of the attraction. Yeah. Well, you can get panels that, I mean, if you talk to Geek, you can get panels that 100% match the color of your existing walls. They can do that for you.
Right.
So you can have the same look just with, I mean, in this amount of space, I'd be very keen on DIY because it's like put as much absorption over as much hard flat surface as you can in here, and then just cover it with fabric that looks nice.
That's what and I'm like I said, tapestries. I wasn't joking. I'm thinking about like these the ceiling is what 16 feet tall.
16 feet high. Oh, the ceiling. If you can put like baffle treatments up on the ceiling, that'd be great.
Yeah. I'm thinking like those long concrete bay looking things. Like in there, even if it's just like an inch thick, maybe an inch and a half thick, sitting right on the wall. Just doing a little framing with some 1x or 2x, and stuffing all that up with 10 feet tall, 2 feet wide, all the way up to the top, wrapping it in a fabric color that you like or that you think
complements
blends into your room, because you've already got lines on your floor, right?
Yes.
So these would be nice tall vertical lines that you could be having going all the way, like 2 in each bay. They don't have to be right next to each other. I'm not trying to fill the entire bay up, but just 2 in each bay, just to like, it gives it an interesting look while at the same time.
I mean, you could actually make this place look amazingly cool, even enhance the way it already looks with treatments. Because
we are not designers. We are not. So maybe not take what we're saying literally, but like say what we said to somebody who knows what the heck they're talking about and say, oh, I can kind of see what you're saying. Maybe we could do this. And then they can come up with something. But yeah, everything that goes on your wall should be full of insulation.
Yes. Yeah. And the ceiling too, honestly, if you could, that'd be great.
Ceiling is harder to do. Does he have a picture of the ceiling? He does have a little bit of a picture. It's a flat white.
It is flat
from one side to the other. This is like a big white
the
box.
lights are hanging down, so having stuff that is somewhat on the ceiling wouldn't look tremendously out of place in here. I mean, you could even go for Gick's really cool panels where they have like wood patterns on the front. So it's like
they're
absorption,
both diffusion and absorption.
Yeah, it's absorption inside and then wood patterns on the front. Like you could have like really cool patterns and stuff in here that way. So yeah, like all the money you were going to spend, we're just going to save you like $2,000 on the display, and then we're going to save you thousands of dollars on the speakers and put all of that into treating this place, because that is by far your limiting factor.
And the let's go back to the receiver. He wanted the 4400 or whatever.
Yeah, that seems very unnecessary.
That seems totally unnecessary. Why not the 3400 or whatever? Because you're never going past. Your Atmos is out in this place. I mean, okay, it's not out. You could hang them. You could hang the speakers from poles like your lights are right above you. You could, and if that's your plan, then more power to you, sir. But in this space, I'd be like 5.1, 7.1, I'm done.
Yeah, he only mentioned adding surrounds and subs to his left, center, right. So I think he's going 5.2, which is great. I'm absolutely fine with that in here. And
let's save him a couple $100.
That's only a couple hundred. We're not into the thousands with that choice. But yeah, X3400H seems like it could definitely do what you want to do.
Yeah. Michael has owned several LCD TVs over the years, Sony's, Vizio's, and now a TCL 55-inch S515 4K model. On all of them, he's always perceived a sickening green hue in the shadows and dark scenes. He always sets the TV to its warmest color temperature and adjusts the basic pictures control, contrast, brightness, color tint using test patterns, but he always finds himself turning down the color until the green tinge no longer bothers him, which leaves him with an undersaturated image, although he'd rather live with that than the green tinge he sees. He has never seen this issue mentioned in any reviews, which he finds astonishing. Have we ever seen it ourselves or heard other people mention it? Could it maybe be addressed using the more advanced color management system controls? Any way to adjust these without hiring a professional calibrator, since he's already going for budget TVs, and the cost of a professional calibrator would be prohibitive. Well, dude, if it bothers you this much, save up birthday money or something, like straight up, because that's me.
The thing is, though, like what he's describing it's not what everybody sees. It's not what I see, and therefore a professional calibrator might not even help you, because
might not. But I mean,
although
for
they can
peace
work
of mind, and not only that, you could definitely sit there and say it's still green to me. And they'll be like scratching their heads, and they can maybe eke out a little bit more saturation in the other colors to help compensate for what they're going to have to do with the green color. But yes, I think it's not us, dude. It's you.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, people see sometimes a bit of a bluish tinge or a purplish tinge in the really dark colors, but not green. That That is unusual, and it really might just be your eyes. That is
You
not
might have a very mild case of like color blindness. You know what I mean?
or just a bit of a what would you call it, a chroma aberration
Right,
in the way that, I mean, this is entirely possible that
I
you are
literally have never heard anybody say anything about
green.
green in the
Yeah.
grays.
I've definitely
never
heard
those.
bluish. I've definitely
Yeah.
heard purplish.
Yeah.
But green is unusual, and I imagine just altering the overall tint towards red wouldn't help, because that would start to make everybody their skin look too red, because that's what the tint control tends to do.
But
So
okay, so remind me how, because I've had friends that are colorblind, but I can't remember. Isn't blue-green colorblind a thing, right?
absolutely.
Could
Sure.
be it's the blue that he's seeing, but
It looks green to him.
green to him.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
maybe try adjusting the blue color might
Mm.
help. And a professional calibrator could really dial this in for you.
I
But
mean,
I would definitely tell him beforehand, like, listen, this is my problem. I think it's just
Right.
me, but I need somebody to calibrate the TV, not correctly, but to me, so that it
Mhm.
looks right to me.
And since it's only in the dark ranges, though, right? He didn't describe it as happening in the brighter ranges, only in the darks and the shadows in that. So that is something that you might be able to adjust with a more advanced color management system for sure, where you could either decrease the green or increase the red to offset it only in the darker portions of the image. That is something that can be done. If you have only a 2-point color adjustment, it'll have the green, red, and blue gain and bias that might overdo things a bit too much. But if you have a 10-point or a 20-point adjustment,
Right.
this is definitely something that you could do. But I mean, does he really need, if he has access to those controls, does he really need a professional? Because couldn't he just kind of do it to taste? Because what else is the professional going to do? Their measurement gear isn't going to help them know what he is seeing with his eyes.
That's true. I mean, they're just going to know better how to adjust, when he describes something.
Right. Like
they're
they
gonna
can make
know
it
what-
accurate, and then he can say, well, this is what it looks like to me, and go from there. But
Right.
I mean, I think he could actually kind of do this himself.
Just
The
as long as you don't go into-
TCLs are pretty decent. They give you a color management system.
As long as you don't go into like service menus or anything like
Yeah,
that.
don't go into service menu, but yeah, I mean, only adjust the dark side and try reducing just the green, or offsetting that by increasing the red just in the darks. Or like Tom says, maybe you do have a little bit of blue-green color blindness for, somehow, and increasing the blue would actually help.
Right.
Experimenting with it won't do any harm if you're just in the user menus. Do that to your heart's content. So yeah, I'd be in favor of that. But yeah, as far as does everybody else see it, no, I have to say that isn't a common thing.
Sean and Luke, these are both from Twitter.
Luke was on Twitter. Sean was email.
All right. Sean has been using his Vizio TV for about 8 years now, and it belongs to his in-laws before he had it, so the TV itself is even older than that. He's been saving up his pennies, and now he has a budget of about $2,500 to spend on what we assume is a 65-inch 4K HDR TV. He wants it to look terrific, and he wants it to last. I don't know if I can help you with the last thing, but we'll have to try. It's going in the family room. There are windows, but they have curtains, so there's definitely ambient light, but it's not blinding sunlight or all the time or anything. His wife and his kids will be watching TV movies on it, and he'll be playing Call of Duty. That's the only game he's allowed to play on it. If we give you this recommendation and you play any game other than Call of Duty, it's your fault if the TV doesn't last.
He's just letting us know that it is a mostly one game situation for him. So to keep that in mind.
And so he's trying to decide which type of TV and which model to buy. The LG C8 OLED, the Sony X900F LCD, and the Samsung Q8FN QLED are all contenders, but various opinions online, and of course the talk about burn-in being possible in OLEDs have him at a crossroads. Which TV should he buy? Okay, first of all, don't worry about burn-in. The only OLEDs I've seen with burn-in are the ones that are at stores that have had logos up on them at full brightness all day long.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah, I mean, like we can't say that it's impossible to get burned on an OLED, because we have seen it. It can happen.
So your phone, right, is probably an OLED screen. Almost all of them are these days, right? So my OLED screen on my phone has burn-in. Why does it have burn-in? Because maybe more than one day, I left the screen on, and I have like the shut off at like half an hour. Why? Because me and the family play Pokemon Go, and if you don't have it at half an hour or something, you have it less than that, it keeps shutting the screen off and screws up the game. And it's a pain in the butt. So I turned it on and I left it on, and I like put it face down on something, so it was just burnt.
You didn't notice, yep.
just burning itself in there and just
It's
whatever.
like the
So
one little row of icons that's always the same or whatever.
Yep, the icons at the top and the two. It was on the home screen. So there was two buttons that had white backgrounds, and those two buttons that
Mm.
had white backgrounds now have burn in. Do I say that all LEDs burn in? No, I say that my stupidness made created burn in on my phone. So
But he's concerned that he could be gaming for hours on end and it's all one game where it probably does have a heads up display of some icons, or he's got kids who might leave the TV on and pause it on a cartoon or something.
Shift it to dynamic mode or whatever the torch mode, you should be okay.
I mean, so he said in his case, an OLED is like his top choice as far as picture quality goes.
Okay.
And I'm not worried about the whole thing about, I've got light in my room, OLED's dark. I'm like, OLEDs are so bright.
Yeah.
It's such a dumb criticism
I
of that.
thought the Sony's were best with gaming, though. I thought Sony's were the best for the response, right?
The Samsungs are right now.
Oh, Samsung's okay.
Yeah, and the Samsungs have the variable refresh rate thing if you've got an Xbox or you're gaming off a PC with an AMD card, because it's AMD FreeSync, or they can do the variable refresh rate with an Xbox One X. So they have that. They probably are kind of the top gaming choice if that's your number one thing. I mean, for me, if I'm like, this is for nothing but a hardcore gamer. They're playing for hours and hours on ends. They've got a heads-up display that's not going to move around on the screen, and they're not going to vary their content. And maybe they are going to pause the game and walk away for 4 hours and leave it up there. I'm like, yeah, a Q8 FN from Samsung is my top choice. It becomes my top choice. I don't think the Q9 FN is worth the greater price tag. I think the Q8 FN is the better choice, pretty much full stop. And if that's too expensive, I'd go down to a Vizio, either a P-Series Quantum, if you want the super bright and you want the quantum colors and all that, and you're willing to pay the highest price tag, and 65 inches is the only size you want, or I'd go down to a Vizio P-Series, because they have really low latency. For gaming, they're great on that side. They just don't have the variable refresh rate, but the price is also like half, so that seems a reasonable trade-off to me. They can even do 120 hertz at 1080p on the Vizios. So those are sort of the orders that I'd go in. But if you can vary the I mean, he says for a family room, I bet you're not viewing only on axis by yourself, at which point an OLED looks so much better when you're off axis. I mean, you have to answer. Do you know that you, when you're playing your game, are going to be disciplined enough where every hour and a half or so you take a little break and either put on a flashing test pattern or just switch to some other content or your TV, or just turn the TV off and run the little scrolling bar that gets rid of any image retention? Are you disciplined enough to do that as you, the gamer? And do you trust that your kids aren't just going to pause on a cartoon and leave it there for 5 hours?
Well, I mean, who else is in this house if these kids are pausing this TV and it's staying on there for 5 hours? So,
yeah. But that happens, man.
I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm saying that it shouldn't.
Right. But that's the question. Are you and your family disciplined enough to vary your content? Because if you are, get the OLED. I mean, it looks better. It just, full stop, it just looks better. But if you're like, you know what, I'm too worried about it, and I think there is a chance, and I don't think my entire family is disciplined enough to vary the content every hour and a half or so, then yeah, go for an LCD. I do put the Q8 FNs sort of at the top of that pile for gaming specifically, but I don't think it's worth twice the price of a Vizio P series. I really don't. That is by far the value choice. So, I mean, AV Forums, they're running a poll. They're like, of all the OLED owners, who's got burn-in? And it's like, well, 1 out of every 300 or so has burn-in. So it's not really that common. And then CNET wrote a whole article about OLED burn-in. They're like, the same thing we said, right? It can happen, but if you vary the content, it won't. And then Ratings put out like a ranking of what they think are the best gaming televisions. And it's like, well, the LG OLED, if you're not worried about burn-in, or the Vizio P Quantum, they actually put above even the Samsungs, unless you really want variable refresh rate, and then get a Samsung. So we're all sharing the same advice here. But you do have to decide a little bit on knowing yourself and your family how you're going to use it.
So along the same lines, Luke is looking for a new TV, and a PC gaming is a priority for him. That's led him to consider Samsung's TVs since they support AMD FreeSync and the variable refresh rate for game consoles. But Luke is looking for the very best value. So he's wondering if Samsung is really worth more than, say, a Vizio P series or maybe an OLED. Is it worth it over all of them? And I think we just answered that. So
yeah, I mean, the Vizio P series is the value choice for sure. I mean, if you're a PC gamer and you've invested in a video card that can do the 120 hertz, then the Vizio P series can already accept that, and it's only if the frame rate drops that you'd worry about the variable refresh rate. And heck, if you went in with an NVIDIA card, it's not going to work anyway on the Samsung because they only do AMD's FreeSync, so you'd have to limit yourself to AMD video cards. Yeah, I mean, there's no getting around the value of Vizio's P series. Right. That's the value choice.
Infinite Gary. Like it or not, 8K really does seem to be coming. There have been a number of recent 8K cameras announced. NHK will be broadcasting dedicated 8K satellite TV signal. TV channel starting December 1st. And of course, Samsung recently launched their 8K Q900R QLED TV, and Sharp is on their second generation of 8K TVs in Asia. And as we mentioned in the news, LG will start mass producing 8K OLEDs this next year. But HDMI 2.1 isn't here yet. So how are these cutting edge 8K devices being connected to one another? The power of positive thinking. I mean,
LG is waiting for HDMI 2.1 because that is supposed to be here by the end of next year as a thing you can actually put in products. So I'm pretty sure LG is waiting for that.
So everybody else is just up converting 4K then.
Samsung is just up converting 4K. Now, Samsung, they have their external One Connect box, right? Where all your things plug into that box, and then that box plugs into your TV, so they can replace that external input box. That's how they're going to get around, because they're like, yeah, we can't do HDMI 2.1 right now, but we can replace the external Connect box. So there you go. We can give it to you later. The Sharps, I love the Sharps because the Sharps use 4 HDMI cables to input the 8K signal. That is how they are doing that in Asia, where they actually have some 8K sources. They're using 4 HDMI cables. So yeah, everybody's basically just waiting on it.
Am I the only one who's always surprised when Sharp is still around?
Oh, they're around.
Whenever I hear, I'm like, oh, Sharp makes TV. Sharp's TV. I'm like, Sharp makes TV still? Man, I thought they were dead like when I started this job. They are so old. You know what's okay? No, we'll talk about this later after the podcast. But anyways, all right. So yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
So yeah, well, waiting for LG. Samsung's going to replace it, and Sharp has 4 HDMI cables.
All right. Carlos has a 5.2.4 speaker setup. He purchased Focal 700 series towers in the matching Focal center, moved his DefTech bipole towers to surround duty, and went with 4 SVS Prime elevation speakers as front and rear heights. He's under the impression that we frown on using towers as surrounds, and I just made a face at that. So yeah, maybe. Is that because of a bad experience, or we just prefer using bookshelf speakers? No bad experience. It's just unusual. And there's no reason you can't do this. It used to be weird because people would do it, and the recommendation was always put your surround speakers, 3 feet above your head and 2 feet behind you. And everybody's like, how are you supposed to get a tower speaker there? But now that suddenly Dolby has revisionist history going on, and like, no, we never recommended that. We always wanted your side surrounds to be right at ear level. Now it makes more sense. It's just most people don't have surround sounds. I was actually, when I made that sort of, bipole towers, I was just surprised that they were towers, not that they were bipole.
I mean, that's one of DefTech's things.
It's just like you don't normally hear that. So using them for surround duty, there's nothing wrong with it, especially not now. It's just usually not high enough. I mean, frankly, for most couches, unless you're going to be putting them directly on the side, and honestly, even if you are putting them directly on the side, we usually recommend elevating them so they have a direct line of sight for everybody's ears.
Right, that's right.
And most towers are not that tall.
No, because that would be weird. I mean, they're meant to normally be front speakers where the tweeters are at ear level. That's sort of the aim, the goal.
So, I mean, that's the only downside, if you want to say that, and the cost.
You could raise them up somehow, give them stands of some sort if you want to elevate them a bit. But yeah, I mean, normally if you're putting together a system from scratch, we wouldn't opt for tower surrounds because harder to position, cost more for really no benefit. So why not get smaller speakers that you can wall mount or put on taller stands? All of that stuff makes satellite or bookshelf surround speakers easier if you're buying from scratch. But if you already had a pair of towers and you're moving them from front to surround duty because you already own them, like, yeah, that's totally fine.
His subs are a pair of SVS SB16 Ultras. One of them is positioned as far as front right corner, and the other is beside his couch on the left. He's using a Denon X4300H, so he ran Odyssey Multi-Q XT32, and he thinks the system sounds great. All right, question is over. But he also has an SB13 Ultra that is now collecting dust, so he's curious what might happen if he incorporates it into a system, most likely positioned beside his couch on the right. How would he go about hooking up 3 subs, and how would he use EQ XT32 in a 3-sub situation. So he has one sub plugged into each one of the subwoofer outputs, and he's got a third sub.
Correct.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't add the third sub in there. There's all the research says even numbers is best. 2, 4, 6, 8.
Right. If you're not doing a whole thing that I'm gonna get into a little bit, but if you're just doing this via positioning and sending a mono signal to all subs, then even number of subs is the way to come at that.
So does HSU still sell their mid-bass woofer? They stopped selling that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they stopped selling that mid-bass module of theirs.
But that is what that if I was going to add a third subwoofer to my setup, that is how I would do it. Which is,
well, I mean, I guess you could turn one of these SVS subs into a mid-bass module.
I would. I mean, first of all, I don't understand. There must be some reason he doesn't have his subs placed diagonally opposite corners.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like any number of reasons could be.
There must be some reason he's not doing that. But in my room, what I would do is I would put one in one corner or in the midpoint of one wall, one in the opposite corner or the opposite wall midpoint, and then I would take the third subwoofer and put it probably right behind the couch and use it as a mid-bass woofer. So with a mid-bass woofers do, they basically play like
50 to 80 hertz is
50 to 80, 50 to 90.
They play the kick drum.
Yeah. So it sits right there. Then your subwoofers are then crossed over into the subwoofers, which will then play everything below that. So
I never really liked it.
I never really liked it. I never really thought it was necessary. Ray Coronado does it and thinks it sounds great. So, whatevs. But no, I would not just put a third subwoofer in here. I mean, you could try it. There's a couple of ways to do it. You could take one of your subwoofer outputs, probably the one that's on the side of your couch, and you could Y split it.
Sure. So the subs that are on either side of your couch would be getting the same signal.
And that way you know that those subs are almost certainly, unless your couch is off-centered, almost certainly equidistant from the number one mic position.
From the middle seat, sure.
So there will be no reason to worry about distance. You just have to make sure each one's set at the same volume level, not on the dial, but you calibrated. Calibrated to the right volume level, so they're both coming out the same volume, and then they can be EQ'd by Odyssey as one. You could also like triple Y split off of one, and then have all three of them getting the mono signal. Yeah, and make sure that each one is calibrated to the same volume level.
No idea if that'll help or harm, though.
That's the problem, is that you're adding this third subwoofer, especially since you say, I think it sounds good. If you have an SVS subwoofer collecting dust, sell it.
Yes, someone will buy an SB13 Ultra. I guarantee someone will buy an SB13
Rob
Ultra.
might drive down from Vancouver to get it.
Not quite. I have a pair of PC 13 Ultras. I'm set. But no, someone will buy that. There's no question.
Absolutely.
Okay, but let's just say, let's say it might not even be him. Let's say somebody else wants to do a 3 subwoofer setup. What would be, I don't know, I guess I'll say optimal or a more advanced way of connecting it all. You could do with a mini DSP 2x4, which is a $95 device, so that's not too bad. You will need a microphone, measurement microphone as well to go along with that. And the free
Herb over at Cross Spectrum Labs will hook you up with that.
That's right, and the free Room EQ Wizard software. But then you'll want to use another piece of free software, which is the multi-sub optimization software. It's free, so why not use it? And what it does is you'll take a bunch of measurements from a bunch of different positions, each sub individually in its position, and then you have a couple of choices within the multi-sub optimization software. You can say, try to just give me the flattest response from each and every sub individually, which is kind of a weird way to do it, but some people are doing like actual stereo subs and stuff like that, so they go for that. Or the one that we're going to recommend, which is try to make every seat uniform, and then you're still going to end up using Odyssey on top of that. It's just going to be a global equalizer at that point. So the way this all works is the multi-sub optimization software will walk you through taking all the measurements, and then you tell it, what I want you to do is crunch the numbers so that I have uniformity across all of the seats. And it is going to then spit out a bunch of filters into the mini DSP that are unique to each of the 3 subs. It's going to give each of the 3 subs different gain, different delay, different EQ for each of them. But when they all play together, You're supposed to end up with nice uniform response across all of your seats. Then you'll tell your AV receiver that you will have one sub. You're going to connect that one subwoofer output to the mini DSP. That's going to feed the 3 subwoofers out of the mini DSP. And as far as Odyssey is concerned, it's EQing one subwoofer, but that one subwoofer now has very uniform response across all of your seats, so it can give you one global EQ very nicely. So that's the more advanced way to do it. It's very effective. It does work. It's more time and effort to set it up, and you have to buy a few things in the form of the mini DSP and the measurement mic. But yeah, that'd be the way you could do it.
You could just sell that third sub and make
or
some
you could
money
just sell that
and
third
be
sub
done
and
with
be
it.
very happy with what already sounds excellent to you and have more money in your pocket instead of less.
He's got an Emotiva XPA3 amplifier to power his front 3 speakers. Since his setup is 5.2.4, he set his Denon's amp assigned to 9.2, and everything seems to be working fine with the XPA3 connected to the Denon's preouts. But reading through the manual, it mentions how if he sets the amp assigned to 11.2, he'll be able to send the preouts to front LR. Should he do that? Wait, what?
It gives you an additional setting. It gives you an additional pre-out setting if you set the amp assigned to 11.2. But you don't need to do that, all right?
I don't see why. If it's working, if all the speakers are working, then I think we just walk away.
So all the pre-outs on the Denon AV receivers, they're hot all the time.
Right.
So it's not as though you have to activate the pre-outs. The pre-outs are always outputting a signal. The amplifier assign, so in the case he has what, X4300H, you said?
Yeah.
So that one has 9 amplifiers built into it, but it can process 11 speakers. That means if you do choose an 11.2 setup, then 2 of those speakers have to be powered externally. Right. You can't power all 11 internally. It doesn't have 11 amps. So the pre-out assign when you've amplifier assigned as 11.2, that's just saying which 2 of these speakers have to be powered externally. Tell me which 2.
Your options will be front, left, and right, or top middles.
Top middle, or top rears, whichever you have.
Right. Because I tried to do top fronts with them, and they were like, nah.
Nope. Front, left, right, or top rears, or in the case of Tom's setup, top middles. So that's just saying these are the ones that have to be powered externally. Everything else, you have the option. You can power them internally with the 9 remaining amps, or the pre-outs are still hot, you can power them with external amps too. So in your case, you're maxing out at 9 speakers. Either way, doesn't matter. You can power all 9 with the internal amps, or power any or all of them externally as well. You don't have to change any settings.
Chris is trying to help a friend decide on a 2.1 speaker setup for about $800. $500 for us. At the moment, he's it's for a computer setup in his office, but there's a chance his friend will want to move the speakers out into his living room, so he's just looking for speakers. He already has an external USB DAC for his computer, so he can just use pre-outs and control the volume from there. Therefore, Chris is thinking he just needs an amplifier, a pair of speakers, and a sub.
Yep.
Chris uses HSU's HB1 Mark II speakers in his own desktop setup, that's ridiculously large speakers to be sitting that close next to, but whatever. So he immediately thought to recommend those along with the HSU VTF1 and maybe an Emotiva amplifier. But what would we recommend?
I mean, what he just proposed is already over $800.
Yeah, I was going to say,
that's an issue.
So he needs the Emotiva amplifier to go with this. Emotiva amplifiers are how much?
I mean, in his email, he suggested the A150, and I'm like, that's a $300 amplifier for a desktop 2-channel setup? That's
so
crazy,
if you're going with something that you might move into another room, you're going to need more full-size speakers. So I like the idea of the RSL speed woofer, which is what, $400?
Yeah, $400 for that RSL speed woofer 10S. Coming up again. Yep.
And then I'm thinking one of the Focal bird things, because they can be on desktops, they can be wall mounted. They have plenty of output for a room, and if he decides to stretch his budget, he could go for the super birds and get the big ones, or get the birds or the little birds. And if the little birds, then he could he could use them as surrounds later on if he decides.
That's very true. Yeah, so the little birds you can get from Accessories for Less for $100 each. So that'd be $200.
$200, $600. So we've got $200
left over
for
amplification. definitely doable. Or if you go with the Focal birds, just birds, those are $150 each. So that'd be $300 for the pair, leaving you $100 for the amplifier.
So you have to go with the amp I have.
Yeah, the Dayton, the APA 102,
Yeah.
which would be absolutely fine. $90 from Parts Express. So that could totally get the job done. You could go with that Dayton amplifier.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking very much along the same lines. I was like NHT's Super Series is another one. I like in a desktop setup a sealed speaker design. To me, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So the Super Zeros are $125 each, so $250 for the pair, or the Super Ones are $175 each, so that's $350 for the pair. So yeah, the Super Zeros would certainly fit. You could also consider Ascen's HTM 200 SEs. Those are also sealed. Those are also $300 a pair. So you're noticing a pattern here. We're going somewhere in the $250 to $300 for a pair of sealed smaller speakers, which absolutely still could be used in another
What do the RBH bookshelves go for these days?
I am not sure. I'd have to look that up. They're not sealed and they're bigger.
So, I know. I don't care about that.
Yeah. I don't know. I like smaller and sealed. So yeah, all of those, the Focals, the Ascends, the NHTs. When I thought this was just a computer setup, there are those Vanatu speakers, the transparent ones or the transparent zeros. And one nice thing there is they actually have a subwoofer output on them with a crossover.
Right.
So in all of these scenarios that we've described so far, we haven't introduced a subwoofer crossover. Because the Dayton amplifier wouldn't be giving a subwoofer crossover. So I have a potential solution for that, which is Monoprice has this teeny tiny little 2-channel amplifier with a subwoofer crossover built into it. And it's just a passive amplifier, but it does come with a little remote, so you can change the volume directly on this little amplifier. And it has a subwoofer with, they actually set it to 120 hertz crossover, but you know what? With the smaller sealed speakers, that's not necessarily such a bad thing. So I'm very okay with that. The only thing is it's $180 for that little Monoprice amp. So it's a little bit spendy, but it could certainly fit. Like if you got the Focal Little Birds and the RSL Speedwoofer and this Monoprice amplifier, that would totally work.
The RBHs are $150 each for the R5s.
So $300 for the pair. Yeah.
And put those on the list too. So
I mean, so if his friend was willing to go over budget and he was going to spend $300 on an amplifier, you do have the option. It's not even available just yet, but we know it's coming, which is Amazon's Echo Link amp.
Right.
Because that also has a dedicated subwoofer output with a crossover on it. It is $300. But not only could you plug in your computer system and all that, now you've got it connected to your network and you can do like all your streaming music via voice commands and all that kind of stuff. So, but that puts you over budget if you're going $300 for the Amazon Echo Link amp. But several options there. Yeah. I think something out of that'll work.
All right, I don't know how much longer we're gonna go. I have like to get to work. I haven't done any work today. Kevin on Facebook. Kevin has a bit of gear lust, and he wonders what we think of the Viva Audio Credenza modular horn-loaded speaker system. Kevin is really smitten with the way it looks and imagines it would sound amazing too. Are we taking with his appearance and design as he is? Are you gonna be mad if I say no? Because that's kind of the way I feel about this thing. The super tweeters on top immediately turn me on to begin with. The essentially having a front, two subwoofers in the front right near your gear seems like a weird idea. And
that's
poor placement.
Not optimal placement for subwoofer drivers. No.
There's really this. Okay, now am I smitten with this looks? I think it looks kind of cool, but I think it's not going to look nearly as cool when you cover all that stuff on the bottom up with the speaker grill cloth, which you're surely supposed to do.
I don't know, man. I don't think you're supposed to cover any of that up. None of the photos have it covered up.
And then they have those big horns on top, so none of your real estate on top of your credenza. So the way this thing looks, so you know, if you take like a really wide component cabinet for your gear that you would put your TV on top.
Sure. Yeah.
On either side, there's popping out of the top like ET's head are horn-loaded tweeters. It looks like, and on top of that, there's a little brass gold colored
Super tweeter.
It's got to be a super tweeter. I mean,
yeah.
it's got to be. The fact that it's so far back from the front baffle of that other thing just makes it just reflects right off the top of the thing. You know what? I don't even know what you think that's going to do. But then again, it's not making sound you can hear anyways. Then inside the cabinet, it's mostly a mid-range, a horn-loaded mid-range. It looks like, and then towards the inside, there are two what look like 12-inch. I'm going to say 12-inch drivers with 4 front-facing ports.
Heck, those might be 15s for all we know.
Nah, it can't be 15s. And then then between those two things, there's just enough space to put a very not even full-size receiver, it looks like, on 3 little things. In fact, the amplifier they're using to power these things, which of course is all full of tubes and crap, is sitting on top where you would put your TV, which can't be wider than like maybe a 55-inch.
Yeah, it's either going to be mounted very high to clear the tops of those super tweeters, or it's going to be not the well. I mean, they say this thing is like can be bespoke, so I'm sure you can get it made wider than this. But
sure, that's what you want. How are you going to get it in the door? No, I agree, Kevin. I'm sorry. I mean, it is it's a very interesting industrial throwback design. You know, my parents had something similar to it. It had a record player on that you would open up the top.
Sure, right.
To get to it was a piece of furniture, and this is just, you look at it and you think, wow, that looks amazing, and I look at it and I say, wow, that looks like it would sound really bad.
Acoustics wise, I'm like, well, that's not where I'd want to position any of my drivers, really. I mean, I guess maybe the mid ranges are, I don't know.
The tweeters, I think, are even too
low.
Compared to where
maybe it's meant for European seating.
Could be, but then again, like, God forbid you have to like tow in your speakers.
Yes,
you're totally screwed.
Would be an issue, and you're at the mercy of whatever bass is being produced by that thing. Yeah, no, I can't say I'm definitely not as smitten as you. This doesn't get me all revved up in pretty much any regard. It's not to my like, but you know what? I have zero problem with you looking at that going, hey, I really like the look of that, because yeah, by all means, man, if you love the way that looks, that's cool.
Yeah, but don't, it's like anything. Like those avant-garde speakers, and if you don't know what those are, you should look them up. They're just huge horns.
Yeah, I mean, if you're choosing between this or a Lamborghini, because that's about how much it costs, get the Lamborghini.
This thing costs a Lamborghini?
Dude, these are like $300,000 speakers.
You lost your freaking mind. $300,000. You should just build the house around it for me. The speakers come with the house. You buy the speakers, you get a house. Shut up. $300,000. This, you know what? If you had said $20,000, I would have been like, you lost your minds.
I mean, if you look at the website, there are no specs at all. They only
talk about specs when you're spending $300,000
and the bespoke. And by the way, you won't get the full sound quality unless you also buy their amplifiers.
Oh, you know what? That the speakers themselves there's a little line in the thing. You can move those speakers, so it's not one continuous cabinet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they show a couple of different configurations.
Oh well, I'm just seeing what's here.
So it's modular, you see.
Oh well, that makes it worth $300,000. For $300,000, you can literally pay somebody to build you a speaker, custom.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I mean, go to Sulk; they'll build you something real nice for that amount of money.
For $300,000, Mr. Sulk himself, Jimmy, will be at your house.
Go to Ascend. I guarantee you, Dave Fabricant will be like, "Yeah, I can design you something for that kind of budget."
And you're like, "I want it to look like this, but I want it to sound good." You go, "Well, do you mind if I put fake woofers in it?" I don't care. There we go, $300,000. They're not real.
You can afford those $3,000 synthetic diamond tweeters that Dave really likes. Absolutely, for that budget.
Greg. All right, this is our last one. I really do have to go to work.
Okay. Short podcast.
It's okay. Greg says he found AV Rant a couple of weeks ago and he loves it. He's been listening almost nonstop in reverse chronological order, and he's almost done with our 2018 episodes already. Well, Greg, thank you.
It's a lot of listening, but yes, thank you. Thank you for being a fan.
His family of 6 are moving to a new house, and there's a finished room in the basement that will become his theater. It's 16 by 22 plus a hallway at the back that leads to the stairs. There's a door at the top of the stairs, the door to close off all the other rooms in the basements, I guess. So there are doors. Okay.
There are doors. This is, it's not a wide open space, but it's not exactly a perfect rectangle because there's a hallway on the back wall in the right.
All right, he's planning to hang a heavy curtain over the hallway entrance, although that probably will alter the total volume air as far as the base is concerned, correct? Correct. That's fine. But, whatever. It looks good. So he's playing 2 rows of seats, and he's given us some diagrams here, but it really is just a rectangle. And the back right on the back right wall. So if you're
Yeah.
sitting down over your right shoulder on the wall, right in the corner is the exit to go to the stairs there.
Yeah.
He's playing on 2 rows of seats, and both rows will get frequent use. So as much as possible, we'd like every seat to be a good seat. He's got $3,500 Canadian. And that needs to cover both audio and video equipment, projector screen, AV receiver, 5 speakers, and a sub. 5 speakers. He's been working 1 sub. He's been working on allocating his budget for weeks, and his plan left him with $700 Canadian for subwoofers.
That was his plan. He's like, I got the projector, the screen, the AV receiver, the speakers, and this is what I'm left with: $700 Canadian for his subwoofers.
That could buy him a single SVS PB1000, but not duals, which costs $1,280 Canadian. Listen to us. He knows he wants even bass across both rows of seats. He's really trying to figure out how he can get dual subs, but the budget is fixed. There won't be additional money for the home theater in the future. And he's in Canada where the price tags are higher and there aren't quite as many options. So he needs to buy everything now in one shot. But it still needs to be within budget and hopefully look and sound great. To help him out, what gear can he buy to accomplish his goals? Should he just get a single PB1000, hope for the best? Well, we don't know what else the rest of the stuff is, right?
He didn't provide a list of everything else he was considering. So I went through Canadian sources and what I would put together for $3,500 for this room, knowing that he wants, the best experience he can across all of the seats, and that all of the seats will be used.
Yeah, well, you got to factor in the riser for the second seat. I bet you didn't factor that in.
No, he didn't ask for that to be part of the budget.
I bet he didn't factor it in. Those people are going to be looking around everybody else's heads going, I can't see.
He didn't talk about room treatments being part of the budget either, and I would love to have room treatments in here, but I mean, this is a challenge, all right? I'm already scraping a little bit to get all the things that he mentioned for $3,500. I mean, maybe he can say acoustic treatments are part of the decoration because you can get printed panels. So, maybe you can fit into the decor budget if there is one. I don't know. Maybe there's a construction budget for this room, and that's where the riser fits in. I mean, the chairs have to come from somewhere. Maybe the riser and the acoustic treatments can be rolled into the cost of the recliners. You get slightly less expensive seats or something, right?
So he only wants 5.1, and the first AV receiver that has Odyssey Multi-Q XT32 is what, the 3000 series, right?
Yeah, the 3400H, which you can get as B stock from Gibby's. Gibby's gets their B stock directly from Denon, much like Accessories for Less does in the States. Gibby's is the place to go in Canada, and they do have the X3400H as B stock for $530 Canadian dollars, which is really darn good because it's $500 American.
That maxes out at what, like 7.1?
That maxes out at driving 7 speakers, but he said he wants 5. So you could still add a pair of ceiling speakers to make it 5.2.2 Atmos. You can still do
16 by 22, right?
16 by 22. So you could do surround backs. You could have a 7.2 in here, but more money for speakers. So
okay.
But $530 can get it for you. Now, again, I said I'm scraping, and I'm not exactly sure how much the projector I'm going to recommend will cost, because I know how much you can get it for sure, but there might be a way to save like about $100.
Okay.
So if you need to save money on the AV receiver, you could go down to the AVR X1400H. Again, Gibby's has that as B stock. They have that model for $320 Canadian dollars. So that's a couple $100 you could save. Now that does drop you down to Odyssey Multi-EQ XT, but that's still pretty good.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. You don't have multiple HDMI outputs, but he didn't talk about having multiple displays.
Sure.
So, and not as many HDMI inputs, but I don't know, is 6 enough? Hopefully. So X1400H could definitely be a possibility for $320 Canadian dollars. Okay. Projector. Really only one choice in my opinion. That's BenQ's HT2050 or the HT2050A, which is the current model. Now you can for sure get that for $950 Canadian dollars because Amazon and Best Buy both sell the BenQ HT2050A for $950. But there's a great place in Canada called Eastporters. So it's Eastporters. Actually, I think they're a .com instead of a .ca. But anyway, Eastporters, pretty much all they sell is projectors, and they usually have better prices than Best Buy. So they don't list the price on their website. It's a whole, you have to call them and get the price, which probably means it's lower. That's what I'm hoping. So they do list the price for some package deals of projectors plus screens. So looking at the prices of some of the projectors they to-do list plus a screen, which I'm sure they're discounting a little bit, so I'm not going to recommend getting a screen from them because they only sell more expensive screens, and you can't afford that. But it looks like they are willing to sell the HT2050 for about $800 or $850. So you might be able to save about $100 versus best price on the projector. That'd be really nice if you could. Screen, I'm wondering if you might go DIY on the screen, to be honest, because you can get DIY fabric, screen fabric from Elite Screens on Amazon.
Okay.
And I'm thinking a 120 or a 135 inch screen size would be really nice. And you can get Elite Screens fabric in those sizes already pre-cut and everything, and you would just make your own frame. And that would save you a good couple $100 because you're looking at $350 to $400 depending on the size. What about
that Illusion Vision? I thought Illusion Vision was cheap.
Yeah, but they're way more expensive.
Okay.
They start at about $700 and go up from there. So you can't get silver ticket. Like, well, you can, but you have to pay for the shipping and everything, which defeats the entire purpose. So like $350 to $400 can get you an Elite Screens, the full screen, the frame, and everything. You can get that right on Amazon, and that's about the least expensive you could go. But if you can just get the fabric and build your own frame, again, you can save a couple $100 that way. Okay, so speakers. Pioneer Andrew Jones. That's what I'm going to recommend. Gibby sells them. And you can get the whole 5.0 speaker package with the tower fronts, which would be appropriate for this room size and multiple seating and everything. $650 for the 5.0 package from Gibby's. So that's not too bad. That's Canadian, again. So if you did all that, guess how much money you have left? You have about $1,300 to $1,500 left just for subs. You can get the pair of PB1000s, which are absolutely what I would recommend to you. So I scrimped on everything, but you can get the subs, and you know what the subs are? They're the foundation of everything. Like I don't want to skimp on the subs. Now,
I know.
If you have to, Gibby's sells Klipsch's subs, and the R12 is not too bad. Now, Klipsch is very honest. They're like the -3 decibel point of the R12 is 29 hertz. Not fantastic, but they're $500 Canadian, which also isn't fantastic. I'm like, $300 more, you can get a pair of PB1000s and really drive 20 hertz for all of your seats. And I got you there by skimping a little bit on the speakers and the receiver and all the rest.
The size of this room is 22 by 16.
That's what he said.
Yeah. PBs are so big.
No, but come on, man. That's per PB1000s, not 2000s.
Yeah.
It's what you want. It's what you want. So he's like, his wife knows the total budget. She doesn't know the component cost for any of these things. I'm like, you don't have to tell her. Like, the Pioneer Andrew Jones speakers, nobody's going to think those are cheap speakers just by looking at them. They look nice. Those are perfectly decent speakers. Is that your sirens
fire department going by, or was that mine?
Whatever.
All right, who do we have left? We only got a couple left.
Yes, we only have a couple left, and those are Josh L. and Galen. You're on the list for next week and shall be answered.
All right, we want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Paul and Greg for going to www.avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, sending us a PayPal donation. And we want to thank our 73 patrons over at patreon.com. Thank you, guys and gals.
Yeah, Paul, Greg, thank you both very much for those PayPal donations. Thanks so much to our 73 patrons over at patreon.com/AVRant Podcast if you'd like to sign up and replace the 2 people we lost. Oh, I'm so sad.
I just want to thank Lee for filling in for me last week, 2A for fixing our website, Patrick for letting us know about Google Music being stupid, and Terry, for talking us up to projector people and maybe even JVC. I wasn't sure about that.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
So thank you guys.
Yeah, Terry, big congrats on that RS540 purchase, because that's a super nice projector. Patrick, thanks very much for the heads up. I think Google Music is fixed now. Looks like it. And 2A, awesome that the website actually stayed live for an entire month this time. And of course, thanks, Lee. Always fun when you fill in.
All right. For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.